Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. The unbeaten Chinese heavyweight Zhilei Zhang will have what many will see as his first true step-up fight when he takes on Alexander Ustinov in Monte Carlo on November 24th. But the step-up fight is far from the only thing of interest here. This fight is on a Matchroom card. And that is only going to fuel speculation that Eddie and Barry Hearn have designs on making a raid on China in the not-too-distant future, a fight between Jiang and Anthony Joshua. And you might think at first glance that's potentially a bit far-fetched, but I'm not talking immediately, and I'll go through some of the statements from recent months and a few other things that make an eventual matchup, maybe 2020 or beyond, a distinct possibility down the line. As I see it, Big Bang Jiang fighting on a Matchroom card, it is the first brick in the wall, as it were, to introduce the unbeaten 20-0 Chinese fighter to the public. Until now, the 35-year-old, he's been fighting in somewhat relative obscurity. He's been dining out on journeymen including Don Hainsworth, Byron Poley, Nick Guivas, the infamous walkout artist Curtis Harper, we all remember the FA Jagba walkout, also Jamal Woods and Juan Good. And this footage that you're seeing on screen, it was actually taken by Jiang's trainer Sean George of Jiang's knockout over Don Hainsworth in September. That was his most recent fight. It's long been said by fans that the Olympic silver medalist from 2008, way back at the Beijing Games, needed to take a step up, and that his record to date, it was a padded one, and some, they've blamed his promoter Rock Nation for not pushing him along fast enough, and others say Jiang wasn't ready for the step up. The 6'6" southpaw, he's been living and training in New Jersey in the United States since turning pro back at 31 years old in 2014. Most of his fights have actually been in the United States, not China. Jiang himself told The Ring in September he wants the big fight, saying, "I can fight any one of those guys, but do they want to fight me? This is one of the major problems out there, maybe because I'm an underdog. I don't have a name yet, and what if they lose?" I see this fight with Alexander Ustinov in Monte Carlo as a careful piece of matchmaking, because if Jiang has anything about him, he will comfortably beat the faded Russian, who is 41 years old now. He's coming off a bad loss to Manuel Cha a year ago, and he looked terrible in that fight. And Ustinov, let's be real, he hasn't been a factor in the division for the past 4 or 5 years. His last really notable win was in 2013 when he beat a faded David Tua, who himself was over 40 at the time. So really, in some respects, it shapes as a bit of a final payday type of fight for Alexander Ustinov, who I'd note is still ranked in the WBA at number 14. Curiously enough, hasn't fought this year. So the stage, it is certainly set for the 35-year-old Jiang to come in, show his wares, box Ustinov's ears off, potentially stop him, and to start to build some buzz for himself. Because right now, outside of those who follow the division really closely, Jiang, he is way under the radar, and when his name does come up, it's often because fans question how has he managed to rise so high in the WBO rankings, facing the competition that he has. And as of October 2018, the big southpaw, he's at number 6 in the WBO rankings, and he holds that sanctioning body's Oriental title. So what of Anthony Joshua? Where does he fit into this with Jiang? What's the backstory? Well, the two 6'6" fighters, they met at the London Olympics back in 2012, where Joshua defeated Jiang, who was the silver medalist from the previous 2008 Games in Beijing. And Joshua defeated Jiang in what was a relatively competitive and close fight. Back in 2016, Barry Hearn told Sky Sports, "We're 2 years away from saying we can sell out the bird's nest in China. I think Joshua's going to be a global figure, and therefore I've got to give him a global platform. I was in Shanghai last week and we were talking. As soon as you show pictures of Joshua knocking someone out, they get excited." Back in July, Joshua and Jiang actually came face to face in the United States at the DAZN USA launch. And that meeting has sparked off subsequent coverage. The China Daily, for example, in July quoted Jiang's trainer Sean George as saying, "Joshua is very impressive. He's a young guy who can really punch. But when Jiang gets in the ring with him, they're going to know they're in with a hungry fighter. A real hungry, aggressive, smart fighter. He's at a much higher level now, mentally and physically. What it comes down to is being mentally ready, and Zhang is. He's showing it in the gym, and he's showing it in his willingness to learn. He's willing to fight anybody out there. In September, Jiang told The Ring, "I would like to make this fight happen. Anthony Joshua is a superstar. He's a bigger name and he holds belts. In the heavyweight division, you never know. It only takes one punch. I still have that very big hope that the whole world is going to see me. Everyone's going to focus on me. I am the giant man from China." His trainer Sean George also stated in that same piece, "He's ready right now. Give me Bryant Jennings, give me any top 5 heavyweight. I'll tell you, he beats them." And in the same month, Sky Sports in the UK, which has backed Joshua's career from the start, it ran a profile piece on Jiang, with Jiang quoted as saying, "Chinese fans are starting to follow professional boxing a lot. Plus China has a great atmosphere for boxing. I'm the only heavyweight people want to follow in China. I got a lot of fans from China asking me when my fight will be and what my training looks like. People want to know about me. This is one of my biggest motivations. I'm targeting all the belts. I believe in order to be the best, I have to beat the best. Now everyone is saying that Joshua is the best fighter, so I will go against him to get those belts." So the talk of an eventual Jiang and Joshua matchup, it is gathering some legs, and more so with Jiang being handed an opponent to dine out on the Matchroom card in Monte Carlo in November. But let's not pretend that this potential future matchup is automatic. Far from it. But what's happening now is groundwork for the future. But that future may never come. If Jiang looks less than impressive against Ustinov, or even loses, there's going to be no interest for it. He may just fade into the ether in that case. But my readers, Matchroom is now starting to look past the next year. Sure, you might have the guys like Miller, White, Usyk, potentially a Wilder unification. There's some of those fights that are sort of a potential for the next year or 18 months. But they have to start looking past that potentially for the what next. There's no guarantee that Joshua is going to keep winning his fights, but if he does, they need to have a pathway of other opponents to actually match him against. And one of the things that they're probably going to start looking at is, okay, these stadium fights in the United Kingdom. What if they start losing their luster and Joshua can't be matched in fights that fans are desperate to see? Right now, things have been going pretty good for Joshua. Was it 350,000 tickets in 4 stadium fights? But the last one, the Povetkin fight, it didn't sell out. And that'll be something that Matchroom is going to be looking at carefully. And sure, there's going to be some people saying, "Oh, your coach packages, they were hard to shift. It was coach packages, otherwise it would have sold out." But the reality is, they shifted those packages for the Vladimir Klitschko fight. So it is a horses for courses thing, and there is more interest in some fights than others. And beyond Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, is Anthony Joshua going to sell out Wembley or the Principality Stadium in Wales against the likes of Dillian Whyte, Jarrell Miller, Hughie Fury, Kubrat Pulev, or whoever? Eventually, they are likely to decide, okay, let's take the show on the road. Sell out the Bird's Nest Stadium in China, and that had a capacity of 91,000 for the Olympics in 2008. That's an attractive and potentially lucrative option for them to pursue, but they need to have an opponent which they can sort of match Joshua against, and obviously Jiang is the obvious choice at the moment in terms of a Chinese opponent. But he's got to do his job, look good, and continue to build his name if that fight is to ever happen. But Joshua will be looking at some of these potential future options overseas going, okay, this is a part of my legacy that I want to build. And he's going to do some of that as his career progresses. I mean, right now it might be sort of UK focused and, sort of mine that sort of market for all it's worth. But eventually there will be some fights overseas. And obviously China is one that they've been looking at and talking about for some time. As you heard, Barry Hearn looking at it in 2016. Zhilei Zhang taking on Alexander Ustinov November the 24th. It's a good step-up fight. He should get through that one, and he should look good in it. They're going to give him every opportunity to look good against a faded Alexander Ustinov. Will it really build some interest for a Joshua fight? It's probably too early to tell, and Jiang needs many more performances before he really is in the conversation for Joshua. But it is a brick in the wall for a potential future fight, maybe in a couple of years' time. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.